Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's a good Saturday morning to you, and we're excited to be joined now by a terrific journalist, decorated journalist, who now is a highly successful attorney in the Atlanta Buckhead area. He joins us each and every week. I cover the NFL from a micro perspective. He does from a macro. So we get a lot of really good thoughts from him. Maybe not, he sees the forest where I see the tree. John, good to have you back. The great Jonathan Shop. Good to have you back, Johnny.
I love it. Week 2. Some people excited, some people concerned. Let's pump the brakes a bit, take a little bit of a bigger perspective as this season gets going and people get revved up or too far down too early.
I agree with you 100%. So, John, let's get right started. I want to hear your Raider thoughts to start the season. Big win, 1-0, but your thoughts to start the season.
We talked about this being a totally new era for the Las Vegas Raiders. That's what it looked like to me. You could see it. Now, I know what's coming on Monday night. Y'all know what's coming on Monday night. My advice to you is pump the brakes. If they go ahead and slam the Chargers, have the greatest game in the history of this rivalry, pump the brakes. If they go out and have a horrible day against the Chargers and get hammered, pump the brakes. So that would be my advice. Now, I see the Raiders. I see it on paper. I see the NFL maybe sticking it to them a little bit. What in the world are they doing playing the late game on Monday night, then having to go across the country to play the early game in Washington on the following Sunday? I don't know about that one. Not a good equation for the Raiders. It is professional football. They do have the travel master in Pete Carroll. But looking at the schedule, are you telling me there was nothing else to do to make it a little more fair? This is one of those examples for those of you that keep score about when the NFL sticks it to the Raiders. You look at it on paper, that doesn't look good. First things first, it is a big one on Monday night. And if it goes really well for the Raiders, don't get too outlandishly excited. You only need to look back at last year's week 2 to remember that maybe it's not totally predictive of what's going to happen.
Well, and I also think what an advantage to the Chargers. They open up on Friday and then don't have to play till the next Monday.
What an advantage to the Chargers, and the Washington franchise is in the same exact spot. They play Thursday. They have that weekend bye. It's early in the season. They should hammer the Raiders with their very best shot in the first half. Now, that's a week away. What are you thinking, Raider fans? Here's what I'd be thinking. We want to get one of these. 1-1 in these next 2 weeks. This little real squeeze by the schedule man is a pretty good result. Stay healthy, overall progress, but I am there. I see this is a new era of Raider football. There's a lot of reasons for people to be excited. I just want them to kind of take it relatively level between now and the end of that game in Washington. It's going to be a little bit wild. Anything but 0-2 is survivable for the goals of the season.
So we're going to come back and talk more Raiders later, but I want to turn our attention to Lamar Jackson, who really took a role model approach. I love this kid. I love everything about him. I'd love your thoughts on Lamar.
We all saw what happened. Fan gone a little nuts in Buffalo. Fans need to cool it. They are there to watch and observe, not be part of the story. Don't ever put your hands on a player unless there's some kind of wild situation where you're trying to protect yourself and or him. I'm thinking mostly of courtside NBA, something along those lines. I thought Jackson handled it right. I thought his reaction was natural. I thought the way he handled it after was natural and appropriate. He's saying, listen, fans, you got to stay in the fans and just stick to being a fan. Stick to cheering. Keep your hands off of anybody associated with the game. There's a lot of guys in the NFL that if they had got touched by this, if they had got pushed, if they had got any kind of something thrown at them or whatever, they would not have just come out and said, just chill next time. So my hat goes off to Lamar Jackson for showing some actual restraint and some calmness, saying just chill. Actually, that sounds like something the NFL ought to take as a little catchphrase and try to promote the rest of the year. Most popular form of entertainment in the country. There's no upside to having any interaction of physical contact between players and fans. Here's a face of the sport wisely saying, maybe just chill next time. You got to be for the way he handled it.
What'd you think of how Jason Kelce handled the Xavier Worthy injury?
Travis Kelce is an extreme veteran on the last leg of a tremendous Hall of Fame career. And what he did, according to Travis Kelce, in Brazil was actually caused that Jalen Worthy clearly separated shoulder that we all saw. I think this is an obvious place where an older Travis Kelce is comfortable in his own skin enough to say, you know what, this was on me. Here's what I did. It was a mistake, and I apologize about it. That's interesting. What's more interesting in this division is this really shapes the first part of the season dramatically for a team that's already short one wide receiver. Now they're short two. They need more out of Kelce. They need more out of other folks. Andy Reid, only a handful of plays into the season, has a hard curveball that he's got to figure out how to deal with. But I think your hat has to go off to Kelce for raising his hand and calling the foul on himself. You think about the basketball analogy. You see some of those NBA games, guy raises his hand like, this is my foul. Kelce did it. We don't see that very often. We don't need to jump up and down and cheer and put him on a Mount Rushmore, but we do need to acknowledge a couple things. It's a totally different media era. Kelce, with the Kelce podcast, has control of his message, and it's very interesting for him to come out and explain, here's what I did, here's how it affected my team. And I think if you're the Chiefs and you're trying to get through what should be the toughest part of their schedule with this shorthand at the wideout position, this is probably a positive. Now, can they find somebody to catch the ball? Can they find somebody to be effective while Worthy recovers? Or is this going to end up costing them home field? I know it's only week 2, but the home field discussion covers all the weeks and all the games. As we saw last week with Buffalo and Baltimore, that may be a home field implicator, and that was week 1. Interesting to watch the Chiefs, maybe a little more interesting now that they are very shorthanded, and God forbid, what if they go 0-2?
Yeah. All right. Every week we like to talk about a football story that isn't football on the field. And let's talk about a hill to let your career die on.
Are we seeing the end of Tyreek Hill's career? Wild stuff coming out of Tyreek Hill. We got to go back to Hard Knocks now, in season, where Hill gets married. We see this now, ex-wife. He's got some real serious problems. This is going to get ugly because people are probably involved relative to legal representation that are going to do what they can to smear Tyreek Hill. That's what I would expect to happen. Now, I say this having obviously no knowledge of what went on there. But I sure hope that there's tape, there's audio. I sure hope there's a whole lot of evidence either way in something like this to make it very clear, or as clear as can be, what happened. But Tyreek Hill, he's got issues all over the place. He's got legal issues. He's got civil issues. He's like civil to criminal. And he's got an NFL issue because the NFL is not a court of law. They are now involved in this thing. We don't exactly know what goes on, as Raider fans know, as far as what kind of evidence they'll accept, consider, and whatnot. I'm wondering if we are going to see Tyreek Hill in the NFL come December 1st, and I don't know if that's even a 50-50 bet right now. This is a weird situation. It is not good. I don't think... how much more can the Dolphins take from this guy? Let's be honest. How much more can they actually take?
Makes Andy Reid look smart for getting rid of him. I know he took a lot of criticism at the time, but sure looks smart. I want to talk to you about, I love the NFL is known for overreactions, and there are 3 teams that could be very much overreacting on Monday. That's the Texans, the Lions, and the Ravens. Let's talk about it.
Let us talk about it. We are leaving the Chiefs out of the equation, just giving deference to their situation, their success. But as we stand here on the eve of the bulk of week 2, we've got 3 teams that are in danger of being 0-2. We have the Ravens, the Lions, and the Texans. Let's talk about them for a little bit. Nobody looked good defensively in that game last week in Buffalo. And the collapse of the Ravens was a bit shocking, but some of us have maybe overrated some of the things about the Ravens that we've accumulated over the decades that don't apply to necessarily an individual Ravens team. I can't imagine how sick Derrick Henry is about the snowball that he arguably caused. I think there's going to be a rally in Baltimore. Of these three, I feel okay about the Ravens taking care of business this week in division. I don't feel as good about the Detroit Lions. As we talked about last week, the coordinator changes. I understand most of the personnel is the same. I don't feel as good about the Lions, perhaps, as I do the Ravens. But when I look at the way this schedule breaks down and what's going on this week, I think you could say that the Lions may be in a better position than the Texans. So of these three teams who are going to have a little bit of a panic early next week because somebody, or maybe more than one, is going 0-2, which of these three do you think has the biggest freak out after they finish this week at 0-2? My estimation, based on the fact that the Texans were sluggish, at least last week. I mean, they really were not very sharp at all. I think the Texans, they're catching a Buccaneer team that's got some confidence. I don't think that's a great equation for the Texans. The Texans are on panic alert as of this taping.
Okay, I disagree with you for only one point. I think the Texans have gotten so much better under DeMeco Ryan, but they still haven't achieved greatness that I think their fans are going to give them more grace. Same with the Lions. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm not calling for this, okay? So don't hear that. I'm not calling for this. But I've talked with several insiders connected to the Ravens who believe John Harbaugh's job is really on the hot seat. And so I'm not there. I don't realize it, but they told me he is on the hot seat. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. If they start 0-2, I think that thing could turn into a combustible fire overnight. I thought that was interesting. Let's go to another point.
Well, I want to mention one more thing. I know it's not Y2K, but the Mike Shanahan rule about 10 years in an organization and then move on, maybe that's been extended a bit. It's possible that something John Harbaugh's doing has gotten a bit stale in Baltimore, and it's certainly well within the Ravens' right and their extraordinary mentality of success to make any change they see fit because they have such a good track record at drafting Pro Bowlers, developing talent, identifying talent, drafting talent, etc. If they made a change at any point, they are going to have the buy-in of their fan base and they're going to get a fair shake. Like you said, not calling for it, not even putting it on the board. But when we think longer term, which we do in this space, folks, as we go around the NFL from a Raider perspective, this is the kind of stuff you tune in for and you want to save it and you want to come back to it maybe a handful of months down the road.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I was told by an insider this week, he told me, you know enough people, call someone. And I did. And I'm like, hey, is John Harbaugh's job in jeopardy? And the first thing was absolutely. So
there's only so much time. There's only so many. I mean, there's only so many prime years of an all-time great quarterback. And it would not be crazy at all if an owner said, hey, we tried it this way with this coach. I feel like we have this much time left. I want to make the change. I own the team. So we will put that in the bank. We will put that in the back corners of our mind as we watch a understandably fascinating season for the Ravens because they are one of the franchises that, whether you're a fan or not, you want to see what they're doing every year.
Agreed. So let's turn to a Kirk Cousins watch. I know this, and I'm not guessing here. Atlanta really wants to keep him, which is blowing my mind. Do you think we'll see him play for another team this year or stay with Atlanta? What's your thoughts?
We got to see him throw the ball. Brock Purdy is hurt. Who knows who gets hurt this week? The Falcons have not let anybody see Kirk Cousins throw the ball. Let me talk about this for a second. Yes, we know a lot about Kirk Cousins. We've seen him throw a lot of balls. We don't know the nature of this injury other than he did not need Tommy John surgery. He did not need a surgery. If anyone is going to make a move or trade or want to even kick the tires on Kirk Cousins, they're going to want to see him throw the ball. It looks like the Falcons are intentionally not letting that happen. Who knows if that's a good idea or not, but already you've got a guy in San Francisco that's down enough that some of this dirt is starting to be kicked up. I want to know how they're going to work this guy out, where they're going to work this guy out, how cooperative the Falcons are going to be, and I want to know if he can throw the ball or not. If he can, it is so funny how things change so fast. Cousins was on some fire early last year before he got hurt. Luckily, it's very well documented in that Netflix quarterback show. So is the exact point in time and play he was injured, which was immediately evident to that team on the bench. All that's in the back. What I'm interested in is, can this guy throw? When are the Falcons going to display it to anybody, and how quickly will it leak around the league? We know what happened to Derek Carr. We know that Cousins did not need a surgery. As we get into, I would say, weeks 2 through 7 or 8, there's going to be interest to know whether this guy can throw the ball. It's going to be interesting. And I know it's not just because I'm here in Atlanta. It's just, folks, when you think about what the Falcons did, it's so bananas. Nobody ever did anything like it. You're stuck fascinated on how this whole thing is going to play out. They sacrificed so much in paying Kirk Cousins those dollars that could have gone somewhere else if they were going to take Michael Penix. Or they changed gears and jerked the wheel so hard from an equation that could have been Belichick, Cousins, and for the love of God, Bowers, who also would have elevated Pitts, who's kind of a not really a guy that can do it on his own. Let's put it that way, at least so far in his career. It's fascinating. People want to know if Cousins can throw the ball. As far as I know, which is not too much, nobody knows how well he can throw the ball, but there are teams that are going to want to know, and I think this becomes a story as the leaves in some of the country begin to make some color and then start to fall.
My colleague Mike Kedlick from SI wrote a terrific article about Roger Goodell and how he maintains balance with a 3x5 card. I'd love you to talk about it.
Folks, you got to see this. I know you don't like him. I understand why. Your reasons may be justified. But step out of that for a second and look what this guy's doing. He realizes, here's what I take away from this article. He's got an index card. He has it to know, to remind himself how long it's been since he's talked to each of his 32 clients who are owners of the NFL teams. This is what struck me as this is a guy, like I have clients and a lot of you folks have clients. He's taken a card with him that reminds him how often he's talked to his clients, and he's making sure he gets them on the phone on a regular basis. That's pretty smart. There's no way in the world that that's not smart. That way he doesn't have to get into a corner and say, all you do is talk to that owner. All you do is talk to that owner. No, man, I talked to that guy on this time and this day, that time and this day. Wherever he came up with this idea, whosever advice he took, this is a brilliant piece of work by Roger Goodell, and I think it is an insight into how this guy has held the most powerful job in professional sports in America during its biggest boom, and how he's probably gotten better at doing that job. So even if it ends today, tomorrow, even if it ends next year, he's held on to this job and done better in this job as he's gone along. This index card idea, this is something that people should read. This is probably something that some of us should consider if we're not already tracking. But from a business perspective, I think you've got to admire Roger Goodell for actually sticking to this and really staying in touch with the people that, frankly, are his clients. That is his client base. He is wise to be doing this and staying in constant touch with every single owner.
So for those of you who are new and our audience is growing exponentially, John each and every week picks what he thinks are the 4 most interesting NFL games. Occasionally he throws an extra point in and we pick the games. We keep track of what we disagree with, and then you either win the weekend or you tie the weekend, whatever, however. John, how do you keep score, John? Do you just keep track of how many winners and losers?
I just look at it straight up. So like last week we tied, but yeah, what makes a lot more sense is to play each week like it's an NFL game. So we will accumulate a record over time. We will have some ties, and if all goes well, it'll be very, very tight. But these are the 4 most interesting games in week 2. Some are obvious, perhaps 1 or 2 are not.
Wait, let's go.
Rematch of the Super Bowl and a preview of what some of us have as a Super Bowl. Again, we are talking Eagles at Chiefs. Of course, I'm taking Kansas City. I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know how. Other than I do know how. Mistakes by the Eagles. Give me the Chiefs.
I'm going to go with the Eagles, and only because the Chiefs are down two wide receivers. If they weren't, I would have predicted them to win this game. I think the Eagles they're their own worst enemy, but they're so good they're able to overcome it a lot. They're one of the few teams good enough to have to beat the opponent and good enough to beat themselves. But the Chiefs are just down too many weapons. Travis Kelce is not the Travis Kelce at old. I hope I don't know, I guess I don't hope. I don't really care. But I think the Eagles here, so we disagree there.
Obviously, we're looking for Kansas City. Can they really effectively run the ball, which may have to include a mid-career Pat Mahomes? Jaguars at Bengals. I got you. I got you folks already. Jaguars at Bengals. This is going to be way more interesting than you think. You got Travis Hunter, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got the notoriously slow starting Bengals. Will there be a little shock down by the river that divides Ohio and Kentucky?
No, it's going to be a Bengals big win.
I am going to go with the shocker. Trevor Lawrence, back on the map. Shocker in Cincinnati. Blank faces walking out of the building. Jaguars, big upset, big shakeup. We have to have the Bears and Lions for so many reasons. What did we see last week? We all probably saw the same thing. We saw quarterback play that did not look ready for the NFL early on. We saw flashes of things from both sides of the quarterbacks, and we saw their games take up a notch. We saw NFL quality throws from both quarterbacks, Minnesota and Chicago. But Caleb Williams' inconsistency is going to have to be something that's ironed out snap by snap, right? I don't think you just all of a sudden click into gear. I think there's a lot of work to do here. I think there's desperation in Detroit, not because they're worried that the sky is going to fall, but because they've been conditioned in that anti-fragile mentality that is Dan Campbell, that is an outstanding, still relatively young NFL coach who is probably getting better also. I know I put the Lions in a rough place. I think they're going to have a rough time for the first month and a half, but of course I like the Lions here. They are the more mature product, the more mature franchise. They pretty much dominate this week.
I'm not a buyer at all on Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a massive bust. And although I really like Ben Johnson, the person, I think he's a lot like Josh McDaniels. And I don't think he's head coach material. Lions, and I'm going to tell you this, I think Lions big.
Can we talk about a couple things that we saw? We almost saw a little bit of Brian Kelly's face in Ben Johnson on Monday night. Now, his face did not get very red. If you remember Brian Kelly's early days at Notre Dame before he had a number of talking tos, he would get a little fired up on that sideline. He would get Irish red, like with ease. Ben Johnson did not like a lot of the stuff he saw. And of course, most of us sitting at home are like, I don't know what just happened there, but this guy was like massively thumbs down on it. I'm not ready to say Williams is a bust. I am ready to say this to anybody out there who either has a young quarterback in the house or the family or is developing one. Get more snaps under center as soon as you can in high school and college than you think you need. This is a very hard thing to learn on the job. As great as Jared Goff did, to me, that's more of an anomaly that a guy could go from like no snaps under center to have a productive NFL career. Caleb Williams is swimming uphill pretty fast. I'm not sure Ben Johnson's ready to handle it or not. You saw signs of good things last week against the Vikings, and you saw signs of this guy ought to be a lot further along. So when you wonder why some people did not have Williams on their board or why they're down on Williams, I think it's the fact that they knew how much this guy was going to have to develop at the NFL level and the difficulty, the likelihood that he would not be able to ever reach his probably potential based on what he can do physically because he's not ready to play and hasn't been groomed to play under center in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you, you said that I've already called him a bust. I didn't. I said I think he's going to be one. I'm very confident in that. I don't believe in Caleb Williams at all. And I think Ben Johnson is a terrific offensive coordinator, not head coach material at all. So I stand by it. All right,
Well,
last
let
one.
me ask you this because let me ask you this because I know it's interesting. We've talked about it in the past. Approximately how many starts do we give Caleb Williams before you start to make a conclusion? Understanding two different coaching staffs. So does that take maybe giving him 20 starts? Do you give him somewhere closer to 30? How many starts until we get a real firm evaluation of this is how good this guy is as a starter?
I think he'll probably get through 4 games next year before they move on.
All right.
Now,
The last game I find interesting.
If they have a really bad year and they're in contention to go get one of these good young rookie quarterbacks, I wouldn't be shocked if they traded him. I can't imagine anyone's going to give much of anything for him, but I've been wrong before.
And we talked about this here before.
You know this. You and I have been friends for 20 years. You know who I talk to. And every one of the quarterback gurus I talked to all said wouldn't touch Caleb Williams with a 10-foot pole.
It's something else. We're going to watch it. And as folks know who've listened to this, we love the idea of competition at the quarterback position. And if your quarterback doesn't want to compete at the NFL level, there's a really good chance you don't have the right guy to begin with. These guys have a long trip east. We're talking Seahawks at Steelers. A little bit of rickety in the Steelers situation. We talked about the importance of week 1 for Seattle. This one, it's not that it's a trap game, but doesn't this look like the Steelers just roll through the Seahawks?
They're going to. I want the Hawks to do well. I have so many friends in that organization, but I have a ton of friends in the Steelers organization. But I'm a buyer in the Steelers. I'm a buyer in Aaron Rodgers this year. And I think this is like a 28-24, 28-21 type game. And the Steelers win it.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Steelers probably by comfortably. So I'm going to go with them by 8 points or more. Those are the 4 most interesting in week 2. We are going to feast on them. Everybody's getting into it. Week 2, we are ready to roll. And as you know, folks, you should be playing this at home, play with your friends, your family, etc. These are the featured 4 for week 2.
Thanks for joining us, Johnny. We'll see you next week.